Broadcasting live from California, get ready for an hour of pure, unapologetic conservative talk radio. Liberals beware, because this is the Wise Conservative Show.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Conservative Show. Now, a lot has happened since I actually had an episode, but of course the most tragic of all of that just happened today. On the anniversary, the one-year anniversary of the Brussels attacks, there was another terror attack in London. And of course, everyone here at Youth Revolt, we all send our thoughts and prayers to all the victims to that horrid incident that just happened today. Of course, England hasn't really seen as much terrorism as the rest of Western Europe, as they are separated on an island. But this is kind of a wake-up call to the UK and to England that they aren't out of this fight, that they are involved in this fight with radical Islam. 5 people were killed in these attacks today, or this attack. One of those is a London police officer who was stabbed by this alleged assailant. And 40 people, more than 40 people, were injured. This was all outside of the Parliament building just this morning, in an act described as, quote, sick and depraved by British Prime Minister Theresa May. Acting Metropolitan Police Deputy Commissioner and Head of Counterterrorism Mark Rowley said that there was only one attacker who authorities believe was, quote, inspired by international terrorism. Of course, this was a very tragic incident, and I didn't expect to wake up to see something like this. We actually haven't seen as many terror attacks recently, and that's been amazing. But this is definitely kind of a wake-up call that we are still in this world that is plagued by radical Islam, that these jihadists are everywhere in our home countries. They could be walking down the street and you wouldn't know. This is definitely a serious event, and Trump is already working to fix this issue. We've seen him already move thousands of troops into the Syria area to actually combat the Islamic State. And of course, he's increasing the amount of troops that we have in Iraq as well. So we're already taking the fight to the Islamic State within this new presidency. But keeping it on track with this actual terror attack today, I actually have the new British Prime Minister Theresa May's response to this attack. It's about 3 minutes long. Take a listen.
Our thoughts and prayers go out to all who have been affected, to the victims themselves and their family and friends who waved their loved ones off but will not now be welcoming them home. For those of us who were in Parliament at the time of this attack, these events provide a particular reminder of the exceptional bravery of our police and security services who risk their lives to keep us safe. Once again today, these exceptional men and women ran towards the danger, even as they encouraged others to move the other way. On behalf of the whole country, I want to pay tribute to them and to all our emergency services for the work they have been doing to reassure the public and bring security back to the streets of our capital city. That they have lost one of their own in today's attack only makes their calmness and professionalism under pressure all the more remarkable. The location of this attack was no accident. The terrorists chose to strike at the heart of our capital city, where people of all nationalities, religions and cultures come together to celebrate the values of liberty, democracy and freedom of speech. These streets of Westminster, home to the world's oldest parliament, are ingrained with a spirit of freedom that echoes in some of the furthest corners of the globe. And the values our parliament represents: democracy, freedom, human rights, the rule of law, command the admiration and respect of free people everywhere. That is why it is a target for those who reject those values. But let me make it clear today as I have had cause to do before. Any attempt to defeat those values through violence and terror is doomed to failure. Tomorrow morning, Parliament will meet as normal. We will come together as normal. And Londoners and others from around the world who have come here to visit this great city will get up and go about their day as normal. They will board their trains. They will leave their hotels. They will walk these streets. They will live their lives. And we will all move forward together, never giving in to terror.
Okay, so that was obviously a pretty decent response to it. And we've seen actually within this past year, as I did say before, this is the 1-year anniversary of the Brussels attacks. But ever since this past year, we've seen an increase in the amount of attacks that are using knives and cars. So recent vehicular attacks that have actually happened that are inspired by ISIS. In Jerusalem on January 8th, there was an attack. In Berlin, of course, on December 19th at that market. At Ohio State, when the car ran into the campus. And Nice, France, that was the first car attack that we saw recently. And of course, today, the man used a car at first and ran it onto the bridge of pedestrians and then got out and started wielding a knife. ISIS has basically long promoted the use of vehicles and knives in attacks by all these different lone wolves, as they call them, terrorists that they inspire through the internet or influence from the community, whatever they get influenced by or radicalized by. They always encourage them to use such simple things such as cars and knives, because even in a country that has restricted guns like England, they're still able to commit these atrocious attacks. This is definitely one of the more common routes, and this is how they knew right away that this was related to terrorism, with the car and then getting out with the knife. Of course, ISIS hasn't claimed responsibility for today's attacks yet, but European government official told Reuters that investigators are considering the possibility that the attack was inspired by ISIS propaganda. This is basically the biggest attack that we've seen in a while since the December attack in Germany there at that market. So it's kind of more of a wake-up call, once again, that we do need to actually fight. And people other than just America do need to fight this. We've seen that there's kind of been a lack of fighting against ISIS lately. We've allowed basically Iraq to take the majority of the fight, Iraq and the Kurds to fight ISIS mostly. And while the Kurds have had great success, we see that Iraq has not done their part, even with U.S. soldiers training them. We need to put more force into this. We need to actually defeat this evil, because ISIS is something that has grown and grown and grown. And while they did used to be a JV team, like Obama said, they aren't anymore. They are huge. They're very influential, and they're inspiring lone wolf attacks across the entire world. They're in over 30 countries across the entire world, and that's just what we know. ISIS is very influential, and the longer it takes to destroy them, the larger and more spread their idea actually becomes. Because we're not going to be able to kill off the idea of radical Islam. That's a fact. There's always going to be radicals within Islam, and within most religions there are going to be radicals. But within Islam, there's going to be radicals. There's going to be people who tend to be terrorists. That is just a fact. But the longer we allow it to prosper as a group, such as the Islamic State, the farther spread that idea becomes, and the more radicalized many Muslims are. The more radicalized the refugees going to European countries become. The more radicalized the people who have lived in the UK their entire lives have become. Or people who have lived in the US their whole lives. We've seen time after time when these people have become radicalized just by seeing posts online. Their idea is getting too far spread. We aren't taking out this threat quick enough. And yeah, that was a huge part to the Obama administration, and Trump is already trying to take care of it. But we need to act together with a coalition of many other nations to get rid of this threat sooner rather than later, because it is getting out of control. These attacks are happening very frequently. And even in a country that, honestly, they don't see very many terrorist attacks. The UK sees very little. And that's because they are so isolated. But this is just showing that ISIS is able to infiltrate everywhere. They are able to get their ideas into any country. And that is scary. We have to take that out. We have to try to stop that very soon, because that is definitely terrifying. The amount of influence they have throughout the entire world is definitely just increasing as time goes on. Well, actually bringing things back to domestic issues, though, that was basically our only international issue that we have for today, but definitely a big one. But bringing things back to Capitol Hill, I talked about this 2 weeks ago, since I did not have an episode last week. 2 weeks ago, I talked about the Obamacare Light Bill, as I like to call it, that is a complete and utter disaster. Well, now Donald Trump went up to Capitol Hill the other day, and he gave a speech saying that Republicans who didn't vote for this would not get reelected in midterms. And that kind of pushed me over the edge here. Donald Trump, while I do feel like he has good intentions, he wants to repeal and replace Obamacare, I don't think he's actually read this bill. I think he's allowing Paul Ryan to actually walk over him here and steer him in a route that shouldn't be taken. We see that Donald Trump and Paul Ryan are basically the two establishment people that are out there constantly pushing this bill, but the establishment as a whole is really pushing this horrible healthcare bill that is actually worse than Obamacare, because it leaves in those statutes that make Obamacare bad, but it raises our deductibles even more, and it lowers the coverage of so many people. It's a horrible plan. And of course, we all know that the establishment isn't listening to people such as Ted Cruz or Rand Paul, who have submitted their own ideas and actually written up their own bills, but they're not having any of it. They're just sticking to their guns, and it is just sad that they're continuing to do this, because this is honestly ruining the party and ruining our chances of re-election. Donald Trump and Paul Ryan both have said that if conservatives don't vote for this bill, that they are betraying their promise that they made on the campaign trail and they won't get reelected. But let's actually look at that. The people who aren't voting for this bill are the ones who are truly supporting their word. Because those who are supporting this bill currently are not supporting a full repeal or a replace. They're just supporting a dumbed down version of Obamacare, basically. Obamacare 2.0. That is not keeping their promises. People who are actually sticking to their actual ideology of conservatism, those are the ones that are going to get reelected. Those are the ones that are standing up, like the entire Freedom Caucus. Those are the ones that are going to get reelected, not the ones that are trying to push through this horrible healthcare bill. Because right now, healthcare is an issue that has given Democrats a horrible image, and that's a fact. But the second this bill gets passed, which it won't, but if they try to actually pass this, that image is going to slide over to Republicans. It's no longer going to be Obamacare that is the huge mess that has ruined this country's healthcare system, but now it's going to be Trump care or Ryan care, which is what much of the left is actually calling it. So we're seeing that they're already trying to shift this blame over to Republicans because of this horrible bill. They are ruining our chances of re-election and honestly ruining the chances of a Donald Trump second term. They're ruining the chances of us keeping the majority in both the House and the Senate. That's what they're doing with this bill, and it's really just kind of mind-boggling how they are continuing to push for this. And it's really just kind of sad that Donald Trump goes up to Capitol Hill and he says that he's not going to help anyone get reelected if they don't vote for this bill. That he's not going to help anybody who's a Republican but doesn't vote for this bill. And actually talking on that same topic, I just got a news notification that the Koch brothers are now putting out a new fund that will only go to people who vote no on this current healthcare bill. Of course, the Koch brothers, we all know, are huge funders of Republican candidates, and they are actually against this current bill. So they are basically countering what Trump and Paul Ryan have said, that they're not going to get funds, that they're not going to get reelected if they vote no. And they're setting up funds specifically for people who vote no on this bill. And they're basically just, it's the Republican Party going to war with each other. That's what it is. It's the conservatives versus those who just want to push anything through at this point. It's people such as Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, it's all of these different people within the Freedom Caucus. These are the people who are sticking to their principles. These are the people who are actually being conservatives on this topic. And these are the people that are going to get reelected. It's going to be a huge battle, honestly, to get a full repeal put into place. It's going to be a huge battle for conservatives to actually push Ryan to change the bill. He's been the strongest opponent to change. Donald Trump and the White House in general have actually been speaking to those who want to change it. Rand Paul, for instance, has talked to Donald Trump 3 times within the past week and to Mike Pence 2 times within the past week, talking about this healthcare bill. But Paul Ryan isn't talking to anyone about changing it. Paul Ryan is the mastermind behind this horrible plan. And we know from the past that he's not a true conservative. We know from the past that he's not principled. And this is just proving it once again, that he is no better than John Boehner was, that he is not a conservative, but an establishment candidate who really doesn't care what he's passing through as long as it's helping the people who are paying him off. And in this case, that's the large corporations that are behind these companies that will be getting huge subsidies within this bill. So this is definitely not a good bill. This is definitely not a conservative bill. And I've ranted about it a lot on this show already. I know that. But it is just horrible that anyone who would ever claim to be conservative could even think of passing such a bill. All right, I'm going to take my first commercial break. Don't go anywhere. This is the Wise Conservative Show. Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from the Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And every time that these universities take up this new social change that they're trying to promote, every time they take that up, they are taking away from that education instead. Because now they're focusing on these social changes instead of learning like they should be.
Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, The Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. prageru.com.
Have you ever wanted to stand up to your liberal professor? Have you ever wanted to help expand the conservative movement? Well, it sounds like you would be a perfect fit for Youth Revolt. Youth Revolt is a team of dedicated young conservatives fighting liberal indoctrination within our school system. If you're interested in being a part of this team by being a columnist or even hosting your own radio show, go ahead and click the Join Now tab at the top of youthrevolt.org. You'll be asked to answer a few questions, and a Youth Revolt team member will respond to you quickly. Be a part of something bigger than you. Be a part of Youth Revolt. Speak without fear.
My friends, I'm going to be blunt with you. There are a lot of frauds out there today. People who claim to be conservatives and yet, in one way or another, believe that more government is the solution to our problems. That's not what conservatism is about, and even more than that, that's not what our Constitution is about. I'm Jason Veely, a recent college grad who has the guts to say what needs to be said without pulling any punches. On my radio show, you can expect 100% pure conservatism every single weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Join me as we discuss history, liberty, and conservative philosophy in a style that is just as entertaining as it is educational. Who says we can't have fun tearing down the liberal establishment? Tune in to the Jason Veely program live every weeknight at 7 o'clock on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate!
Love trumping hate involves a lot more assault and arson than I expected. The Wise Conservative Show, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on Youth Revolt. Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. Once again, I am your host, Connor Wise, and something that has been going on for 3 days now are those hearings on Gorsuch to be Supreme Court Justice. We've seen a lot of different questions being asked, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I have not watched all 9 hours, maybe more than that of it. It has been question after question, and they've really basically covered everything. Of course, we've seen Republicans just throwing snowball questions, easy questions that he can easily answer to try and make him look better. But then Democrats are throwing these very hard questions, or what they believe are hard questions, at Gorsuch, trying to throw him up, trying to mess him up, trying to badmouth the Trump administration at the same time. And I actually have a little bit of the Democrats and actually Lindsey Graham at the same time asking questions to Gorsuch here. I only have the response to Lindsey Graham's question, but take a listen to this.
I had a career in identifying absurdity. And I know it when I see it.
Does the president have the authority to ban all Jews from the United States or all people that come from Israel?
How do we have confidence in you that you won't just be for the big corporations, that you will be for the little men?
Had you ever met President Trump personally?
Not until my interview.
In that interview, did he ever ask you to overrule Roe v. Wade?
No, Senator.
What would he have done if he'd asked?
Senator, I would have walked out the door.
Every question that the Democrats and Lindsey Graham, he basically counts as a Democrat, every question that they asked him were trying to accuse him of something or trying to accuse the Trump administration of something. You heard one in there asking if the president has authority to ban all Jews. I don't know where that came from. That's just out of left field. I'm assuming it's a twist off of their quote-unquote Muslim ban that they like to call it. But again, it's just question after question that these Democrats are asking that have no relevance in the real world. And every time Gorsuch actually answered them, he always stuck to a principled constitutionalist answer. Every single one of his answers were about following the Constitution word to word. That's it. And it was all of his answers that I actually listened to, which was quite a few, were amazing. He answered the Democrats' questions great. He answered the Republican questions great. But of course, Democrats believe that he's just not progressive enough, that he's not going to protect the little guy. As you heard Dianne Feinstein in there, I believe, asking him whether he'll stand up for corporations instead of the little guy, which I don't understand because she's taken way more in super PAC money than a lot of Republicans have. But, you know, Democrats like to lie about that kind of stuff. She's just one of those other liberals that don't really follow what they preach. All of them are hypocritical. But they constantly asked him about these just idiotic questions that have no relevance and have no backing in the real world, such as that Jew ban, such as him supporting corporations, which out of all of his actual rulings, which was thousands upon thousands of rulings within the past just decade, Gorsuch only had one of those rulings that was overturned by a Supreme Court case. He has upper 90 percentage in ruling based on what the Supreme Court would actually rule as well, ruling based on the Constitution. That is extremely good. You look at people such as the Ninth Court, those judges, 2/3, maybe more of their rulings get overturned because they're that left-wing, they're that skewed. But we see someone like Gorsuch, and every single one of his, well, just about every single one of his rulings were upheld. He is an amazing judge. He sticks to the Constitution. But of course that worries the Democrats because they don't like to follow the Constitution. They like to mold it to whatever they want. They like to bend and twist the words into something that gives them more power and allows them to keep people such as those in the inner cities in poverty so that they can have more power. Because that's what they do. The Democrats don't follow the Constitution. They think it's a living document that changes with whatever they want. That's not how the Constitution works, though. It doesn't change with whatever the political climate is of the time. And that's not how it was meant to be written. The Founding Fathers wrote it so that it gave a certain amount of powers to the federal government. And those are the powers that they ought to have. The other powers, according to the 10th Amendment, are left to the states. But if you ask Democrats, if you ask liberals, they don't think that 10th Amendment is there. They think that every power, if it's not stated, automatically goes to the federal government. They think that they should have more power, more control over everyone with so many different issues. And so when they see someone who is so principled upon following the Constitution, such as Gorsuch, they get scared. Because that means that they're not going to get their rulings anymore in terms of power. And they're terrified about that because they think they're going to lose their power, they're going to lose their influence. And we already saw it with someone like Hillary Clinton. She always did everything that gave her more power, and that's why we saw so many different scandals. The left in this country are power hungry. And when someone who follows the Constitution is being nominated to the Supreme Court who will not rule in their overbearing governmental favor, they get terrified. And we see that they are threatening to filibuster his vote so that he can't actually get confirmed. There are definitely floating new options for complicating this vote. We've seen them delay just about every single one of Trump's cabinet members as well. He's not even done having all of his cabinet members actually nominated, or not nominated, but confirmed yet, because the Democrats have stalled so far on that. Well, now they're trying to stall the same way on the Supreme Court nominee, and of course, that's with filibustering. They're going to use it so that they can never even get the vote in place. Top Republican Senator John Thune, he's from South Dakota, he all but confirmed today that his party is willing to use what's known as the nuclear option to lower the vote threshold to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch if Democrats try to filibuster. Now, what this does is it lowers it to a simple majority instead of the supermajority that you currently need of 60 votes to actually confirm the nominee. And actually, back in 2008, I believe, that's when Harry Reid, when he was in control, he lowered it so that Democrats could get their nominee through. And that's how we got the ultra-liberals on the Supreme Court through Obama's nominees, because they lowered it down to a simple majority, which they had at the time. And now Republicans are saying that if the Democrats do filibuster, if they do stall, then they're going to go that nuclear route that the Democrats already took. Because, well, the precedent is set by Democrats already, and Gorsuch is going to be on the bench no matter what. It doesn't matter whether Democrats try to stall him or not. Republicans have vowed to get him on the bench, and that's what they're going to do. Senator John Thune said, "We will do what is necessary to confirm Judge Gorsuch on the Supreme Court." Yes. And that's when they were asked if they would go the nuclear route. He serves in the number 3 position in the Senate GOP leadership. He's the chairman of the Senate Republican Conference. And he added the Democrats have, quote, have not laid a glove on him in the hearings, and predicted the judge would get an affirmative vote in the Senate. Now, we actually already see a couple Democrats. So not every single Democrat is threatening to filibuster and delay, but there are already a couple Democrats, 2 or 3 of them, that have said that they are going to vote for Gorsuch because of how unbiased he is, basically, and how constitutionalist he is. A few of them actually are, and those are, of course, the moderate Democrats. And so we already do have more than just the Republicans voting for him. I'm not sure whether Lindsey Graham is going to vote for him or not, but we already have more than just Republicans voting for him. But we don't have that 60 threshold that we need. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Elizabeth Warren both called on Tuesday, so yesterday, for postponement of any vote to confirm Gorsuch to the nation's highest court. Quote, "It is unseemly to be moving forward so fast on confirming a Supreme Court justice with a lifetime appointment, while this big gray cloud of an FBI investigation hangs over the presidency." This is Chuck Schumer, by the way. "You can bet if the shoe were on the other foot and a Democratic president was under investigation by the FBI, the Republicans would be howling at the moon about filling a Supreme Court seat in such circumstances." And then Elizabeth Warren added on Twitter, "Neil Gorsuch is up for a lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court from a president whose campaign is under an FBI investigation." And of course, Republicans are calling this ridiculous, but Democrats are still going to try and filibuster, trying to get him to get to that 60, but we all know that's not, that they could just go the nuclear route. But again, with this FBI investigation, now, of course, Comey, yesterday or the day before, did confirm that they are looking into Russian ties, collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia itself. And from his hearing, what it sounded like, there was no physical evidence of collusion between the two. And that's what he basically said. He said that they had no evidence of it, basically, but they're still looking into it to try and find more evidence. But of course, Democrats are taking this investigation to a whole new level, and the investigation is only happening because they cried Russia after everything in this election. They continuously say that Russia hacked the election, when we all know that isn't true. They did not hack into our voting machines. They did not hack into anything. Yeah, they tried to influence people with some propaganda news. Our country does way worse than that in other nations for elections. We have literally rigged election after election, and rigged coups, as a matter of fact, time after time. And yet, the people who support that, such as Dianne Feinstein, such as all of these leadership people from the Democrats, Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, those are the people that supported overthrowing and holding coups and basically staging elections in different countries. Yet when Russia tries to even just insert news articles that are sort of biased towards Russia into the news cycle, they're freaking out. They're acting like this is the Cold War all over again. Folks, Russia is not our true enemy right now. Russia is not the ones that are actually trying to destroy this nation at this point. It's not Russia. But right now it really seems like the left is. Because they're not allowing the diplomatic processes that we have prided ourselves upon for over 200 years. We have allowed these confirmation hearings to continue for over 200 years in this nation. But suddenly, because the Democrats are full of snowflakes now, because they can't deal with the fact that they lost an election, now they are ruining that precedent that has been set by generation after generation in this great nation. They are ruining a precedent that has continued for over 2 centuries. All because they are being petty over an election that they had no chance in winning. They nominated the worst candidate possible, which was under multiple FBI investigations, which had so many scandals, over 30 scandals behind her name, and they put her up against someone who they should have been able to beat. They should have been able to beat Donald Trump. That's a fact. But they couldn't because they put up such a horrible candidate. And they're throwing baby fits over that. They're ruining the democratic process that our nation has used for so long. They're ruining the entire workings of our legislative branch. And even through that, they're affecting the executive branch and the judicial branch. They are affecting our entire government, and they're stalling it to an unprecedented level. They're stalling it to a point that we have never seen before. Yes, Republicans have stalled certain votes in the past. Of course, filibuster is in there for a reason. But Republicans haven't stalled countless different hearings, countless different votes on nominees for cabinet-level positions, so that an administration essentially can't work. We see that Donald Trump's administration has been unable to fully operate because they don't have their entire cabinet-level positions even confirmed yet, let alone the deputy-level positions and all of those below them. There are so many thousands of positions that can't be filled because the Democrats are stalling. Because they are throwing baby fits time after time. This is something that we've never seen before in American history, or in world history for that matter. No one has ever thrown baby fits this much, thrown baby tantrums every chance that they can. The Democrats are taking this to a whole new, unprecedented, and unacceptable level that is ruining what we pride ourselves upon, and that is the values of democracy, the values of a government that actually works for the people, that actually works. Because we can't work for the people when we don't have a full government put into place, when we don't have those cabinet-level positions, when we don't have a full Supreme Court. They are not allowing this Trump administration to ever even have a chance. They would rather see our current government fail than just admit that they lost the election. And that is sad, that is scary, and this is way unprecedented, and it shouldn't have ever been something that they resorted to. All right, don't go anywhere. I'm going to take one last commercial break. This is The Wise Conservative Show. Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from The Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. How haven't all of these protesters realized that they are the exact reason why Donald Trump was elected in the first place? How haven't they realized that them being crybabies about every single thing in life is exactly why the American people rose up and voted for Donald Trump? They are the whole reason that they have all this misery currently.
If you got a business, that you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen.
Get out of here, you idiot. Sorry about that, folks. Jason Veely here, host of the Jason Veely program. I'm a 22-year-old conservative who is fired up and ticked off at the direction the progressive left have taken this country. Join me every weeknight at 7 o'clock as we promote liberty, advance conservative principle, and work to restore the Constitution of the United States. I can get loud and I can get passionate. How can we afford not to when so much is on the line? Tune in to the Jason Veely program, live every weeknight at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time on youthrevolt.org. I'll see you out on the battlefield.
Hi, everybody. Connor Wise here with an exclusive clip from The Wise Conservative Show. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back. And every time that these universities take up this new social change that they're trying to promote, every time they take that up, they are taking away from that education instead. Because now they're focusing on these social changes instead of learning like they should be.
Calling all young conservatives. Have you ever wanted to write for an online publication? What about host your own conservative radio program? Now you can, thanks to YouthRevolt.org. Youth Revolt is a conservative media network for young people, the goal of which is to educate our fellow Americans, and also to expose the left-wing indoctrination that goes on in classrooms across the country. Become part of a team that is dedicated to taking the country back, one radio program or opinion column at a time. If you're interested, go to YouthRevolt.org and click on Join Us on the top of the page. Fill out our brief questionnaire, and one of our representatives will be in touch with you in no time at all. The time to reclaim our future is now. Be a part of something that's bigger than yourself, and join the movement today. Youth Revolt. Speak without fear. Ever wanted to learn the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in less than 10 minutes? Are you looking for the truth about the so-called gender wage gap? Well, my friends, I'll let you in on a little secret. Prager University is a source that I use all the time when preparing for my show, The Jason Veely Program. Dennis Prager and his team have put together a remarkable organization that seeks to explain and spread Americanism through the power of the internet. Their short yet extremely informative videos reach more than 100 million people per year, and they want to reach you as well. Go on YouTube and type in Prager University, or go to prageru.com for all of their latest content. That's Prager, the letter U.com. prageru.com.
Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate! Love Trump's hate!
Love trumping hate and
Welcome back to the Wise Conservative Show. I'm your host, Connor Wise. Looks like our commercials cut out a little bit there, but it's all right. Just gives us more time to talk. So you might have heard this already because it's kind of big news, and it partially supports claims that Donald Trump has made over the past couple weeks that he was wiretapped by President Obama, former President Obama. Well, now members of the intelligence community say that incidentally collected communications, they accidentally collected those from the Trump transition team during legal surveillance operations of foreign targets. And this is what House Intelligence Chairman Representative Devin Nunes said. He's a Republican from California. He said this today, and I have his statement here. So I'm going to play that for you guys right now. Take a listen.
So first, I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Third, I have confirmed that additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. And fourth and finally, I want to be clear, none of this surveillance was related to Russia or the investigation of Russian activities or of the Trump team. From what I know right now, it looks like incidental collection. We don't know exactly how that was picked up, but we're trying to get to the bottom of it.
Okay, so the President of the United States' personal communications was collected in incidental collection, not in specific targeting.
It's possible. We won't know until we get the information on Friday. I believe it was all done legally. I think it was all obtained legally. I think the question is was it Was it masked? Why was it unmasked if it was unmasked? Because it appears like we have new information about additional unmaskings. And then who was on the dissemination list? And why was the dissemination list so far if it was such specific information about the Trump transition? And it appears, and just to give you one piece of information I think might be helpful, it appears most of this occurred, from what I've seen, in November, December, and January.
So now Democrats are saying that this is not a reputable claim just because of the way that he went about releasing the information. Here's a quotation from Adam Schiff, a representative from California, of course a Democrat. This afternoon, Chairman Devin Nunes announced he had some form of intercepts revealing the lawfully gathered intelligence on foreign officials included information on U.S. persons, potentially including those associated with President Trump or the president himself. If accurate, this information should have been shared with members of the committee, but it has not been. The chairman also shared this information with the White House before providing it to the committee, another profound irregularity, given that the matter is currently under investigation. I have expressed my grave concerns with the chairman that a credible investigation cannot be conducted this way. And of course, James Comey, he said that there is no evidence currently that the FBI has found of this wiretapping. But if this is information coming from the intelligence community, basically. He's from the House Intelligence Chairman. He knows people within the intelligence community. He speaks with them regularly because of his job. So this is obviously information coming from probably the NSA about their different wiretappings, which shouldn't be happening in the first place. But they definitely did collect data from the Trump transition team. Whether they were specifically targeting Donald Trump himself or whether they were targeting someone that they were discussing things with, they spied on Donald Trump, and that's the bottom line. They spied on his transition, the Obama administration did, and that is not something that should be happening. And the Democrats that are continuing to deny this, even though these claims are already out there, that this evidence is out there now, it's really just sad. They're kind of digging themselves a hole again in an issue such as this, just like they did with Russia. Trump was informed on this topic from Nunes. Of course, so was Paul Ryan on just today about these findings. Nunes told basically everyone about it because this is huge news, that there is information on this. And Nunes has said that the NSA has been, quote, very helpful during the investigation. However, he is unsure if the FBI is going to comply. Nunes says the surveillance was legally collected, as you heard right there. He believes it was at least. So this was just through the bulk data collection that the NSA currently does of millions upon millions of Americans at one time, unwarranted. But that's a whole nother discussion on whether we should have that or not. But this is just, it's basically Trump was spied on, whether it was intentionally for Trump or if it was just because of certain keywords that they listened to. He was definitely spied on by an intelligence agency within our government. And now we see people such as James Comey lying about it. All these different Democrats that I'm sure knew about it, especially someone in the intelligence community, such as Adam Schiff. These are people who know that this happened, but they're still lying about it to protect the previous administration. And that is definitely a huge issue. And it does sort of back up Donald Trump's claims through that tweet that President Obama wiretapped him. Of course, it might have just been with millions of other people being wiretapped at the same time. Now, as I always like to do for my last segment of the show, I like to bring it back to our school system and the liberal indoctrination that continues to go on within this nation, as that is one of the biggest issues, I believe, within our nation. And I have two stories today on this horrible liberal indoctrination within our nation. We see that now that Trump is being compared to Hitler and Mussolini in a New York school lesson. A group of moms in Saratoga Springs, New York, have decided to fight back against what they call the radical left-wing indoctrination that has infested their local school system. These group of moms actually call themselves the Conservative Chicks, and one of their leaders contacted Fox News after reading one of the books that they published through one of their authors, The Deplorables, and she realized that it was time to take a stand, and so a group of moms got together and created the Conservative Chicks, and they actually realized after they created this group that their sons were being taught this lesson, and every class within their grade was taught this lesson within 10th grade. They were taught this lesson where it was comparing Mussolini and Hitler to Donald Trump. And when actually brought up with the school board and the education board within their district, because this was a school-wide lesson, what the education board actually said is that it is a part of the curriculum to teach World War II fascism, which they did do there for their benefit of the doubt there. They did teach Hitler and Mussolini in this lesson, but they were then further asked about what Donald Trump has to do with World War II, and they had no response. So this is just more of the left basically taking control of our school system and not caring what they say, not caring about what they're brainwashing our children with. These are 10th graders that look up at the screen for this PowerPoint and they see Donald Trump, the president of their country, being compared to fascist dictators, brutal dictators such as Mussolini and Hitler. And this is a comparison that sadly the left makes all the time. They compare Donald Trump, who honestly is a very generous man if you look into many of the different things he's done to help people out throughout the past. And they compare this generous man to someone who is so evil as Hitler, who murdered millions of people, or Mussolini, who killed so many of his own people. This is just sad, and it is so unwarranted. It is so unbacked. They have no claim that actually backs this up, no link to back it up. All they say is because, well, he's a little more authoritarian on the conservative side, so he has to be fascist. That's what they continue to say. But that's just one of the instances that we've seen within this past week, basically. Now, a school is ordering boys to, quote, tolerate undressing with girls and making it, quote, natural. A teenage boy was told by school leaders that he had to tolerate undressing in front of a female student and to make it as natural as possible. And this is according to a blockbuster lawsuit that is being filed in a Pennsylvania federal district court. The lawsuit that was filed yesterday alleges that the Boyertown Area School District shamed the teenage boy and violated his personal privacy. They are also alleging sexual assault. This is from an attorney defending the boy here. Quote, "No school should rob any student of this legally protected personal privacy. We trust that our children won't be forced into emotionally vulnerable situations like this when they are in the care of our schools, because it is school's duty to protect and respect the bodily privacy and dignity of all students." Last fall, the teen boy was standing in his underwear inside a locker room at Boyertown Area High School, preparing to change for PE. Then he suddenly realized that there was a girl in the same locker room changing, who was at the time wearing nothing but shorts and a bra. Now, the boy, along with several of his classmates, reported the incident to the assistant principal, but then the assistant principal indicated that the legality was up in the air because students who mentally identified themselves as the opposite sex could choose the locker room and bathroom to use. So basically, there's no reason in this district to have a boys' locker room and a girls' locker room, or a boys' bathroom and a girls' bathroom, because if someone mentally identifies as the other sex, they can go in either one. This is part of the weird new mentality that these snowflakes have brought forth within the past couple years, where gender is not biological but mental, which is complete BS. Gender is obviously biological. You're either male or female, and you can't change that. It is in your DNA. But apparently the snowflakes in today's world believe that you get to change it just whenever you want, whatever benefits you at the time currently. And they're trying to infiltrate all of our schools with this. And my school, actually, and schools across the entire nation now have bathrooms that are basically non-gender bathrooms, so anyone can use them at any time. That way they can help out the transgender students at the school. Schools across the entire nation have that now, after we all know President Obama tried to force schools to implement those. So we've seen all of these different changes within our school system that have been forced upon these liberals within our nation, forced upon our school systems, when quite honestly, they shouldn't be. When we shouldn't be allowing people to choose whatever bathroom or locker room they get to use, that's not how it works. You are a male or a female. You don't get to choose that whenever you want. It is in your DNA, it is biological. It's not this mental thing that you get to change. The left is seriously deluded when it comes to this, and the fact that the assistant principal couldn't say that this was wrong, that he couldn't say that the girl was in the wrong locker room, it just shows how far the liberalization of our school system has actually gone. It's infiltrated into every nook and cranny into our education system. And it has gone way too far. We've seen so many different districts across the entire nation becoming liberalized and indoctrinized. And it has gone too far. It has to change, folks. It has to change. I urge all of you to speak up about this if you see anything that is going on, such as liberal indoctrination. Of course, if you see any of this, just send it on over to us at Youth Revolt. It is our main mission to combat that liberal indoctrination here at Youth Revolt. So please, show us those reports of this liberal indoctrination that happens so often within this country. This horrible issue has to be solved sooner or later. It's something that just has to end, or else our entire nation is honestly just going to continue to be derailed. All right, that's all for today's episode of the Wise Conservative Show. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. I have been Connor Wise. You can reach me on Spreaker.com/TheWiseConservative, Instagram @the_wise_conservative. Go ahead and search up Youth Revolt on Facebook, or even just go to youthrevolt.org. Once again, I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in, and as always, God bless.